Yeah, yeah. Coming up on Mental Health Matters with Marty, we are continuing the series on What About Dad as Danny Ross joins us. Stay tuned. What's up, everybody? Yes, it's me. It's Marty Sellers, and I am back, your mental health hygienist, hoping that you had an amazing Thanksgiving. How you doing and how you living? I am so glad that you're joining us today. Listen, let us know where you are from and where you are listening from. And we want to know how your Thanksgiving was. What is going on, everybody? I missed you so much, and hope that you are doing well. Listen, I am coming to you live and in living color from Southern California, where the sun is always shining. And y'all, it was a hot 80 degrees out here. So for those of you on the East Coast and down south and everywhere else in Detroit, listen, y'all getting some snow out there. God bless you, but we are living in the sunshine. My life, my life, my life in the sunshine. Hey, yes. Look in your life and see what I see, and I see your life is beautiful. I see that you're living much better than you were, and that your best is still yet to come. Hope you're doing well. Listen, let me just give you a little reminder what we are all about. The Mental Health Matters with Marty show is intended for as a psychoeducational tool to supplement your journey in your mental health. Again, we are not a substitute for you seeing your therapist. However, we are a supplement. We are an added bonus, an addition to what you're already doing, just to help you along this thing, this journey called life, because we don't want you to continue to secretly suffer in silence in the shadow of shame, but we want you to speak up, speak out, and live. Therefore, if you're experiencing any type of psychological emergency or any mental health crisis, please dial 911 or go to your nearest urgent care for help. But with that being said, y'all, we are so glad that you're joining us. Now, how do you engage in the conversation? This is how you engage in the conversation: by checking us out on the Mental Health Matters with Marty page on Facebook or the Marcel Media Group on YouTube. That's how we see your comments. If you comment anywhere else, know that we are not ignoring you, but those are the two pages that we can see your comments and that we can engage you on. So let me know how you're doing. Let me know how you're doing. How are you? What's up? What's up? What's up? Today, we are continuing our series about What About Dad? In the midst of everything, we never want to forget dads during the holiday season, during this time, because it can be lonely for dads during this time, especially for dads who are not maybe in the home with their children. And a lot of times we don't talk about dad and the anxiety and the depression and so forth that he is going through. So we were just kicking off this series and doing this whole series about What About Dad? But today's special is going to be specifically about I was too young for you to die. Many of us have experienced many tragedies, the loss of dad, whether we're from a young age to being older. I have several clients that we are talking through and working through the physical death of dad when you were younger, and that you're just dealing with that on a continual basis, and that maybe you haven't brought closure to it. Or maybe your father is alive physically, but there's no connection on a relationship wise. And we want to talk about that too. I was too young for maybe dad for you to exit yourself out of my life and forget about me. So therefore, although you might be physically alive, you have been emotionally dead to me since I was 9, 10, 11, 12. And now that I'm a grown man with my own children in my own relationship, how do I deal with that? And how do I reconcile, which I might think life has been unfair, and yet how do I deal with that, and that I can become healthier and remain healthy and mentally healthy in this walk in life? So let me know how you're doing. Who's out there listening? Who's out there? I would love to see where you're from. Give me some shout outs, y'all. What is going on with you? Hope that you had an amazing Thanksgiving, had a great Thanksgiving, had family here from all over the country, had friends and close friends here, and everyone. So listen, we had an amazing, this year we had some new traditions. We had some Southern cuisine coming in from Dallas that was here cooking for us. Listen, we had shrimp and crab stuffed bell peppers. We had lobster mac and cheese. Come on, somebody. And some seafood dressing and some red beans and rice. Don't y'all play with me. What you know about that? See, I'm getting hungry already. Yes. But anyway, hope that you are doing well. Let me know you're out there, good people. Good to see you out there. But without any further ado, I want to bring to you one of my mentors, one of my colleagues, good friend, my own personal therapist. Gloria, how are you doing, darling? Seeing you out there? Yes, but this is my boy, my friend, my colleague, my ride or die, one who keeps me honest and make sure that I'm doing the right things. And let's welcome back to the Mental Health Matters with Marty platform and stage, none other than the illustrious, the man himself, none other than the author, the critic, Danny Ross.
Now, I don't know about all of that. That
Danny,
is too much.
How you feeling, Danny? How you feeling, man?
I'm doing great. It is an exciting time of the year, and I'm just excited to be here and to just talk to you about this thing called grief. And I was too young for you to die. I can attest to that message, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. It's going to be great.
Yes. Before we get into that, Danny, how was your Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was great. It was quiet. It was catered. Okay. It was
come on, catered. Listen, I was in here cooking and frying turkeys and roasted turkeys and doing greens and green beans and potato salad and macaroni and cheese and candy yams and mashed potatoes. As my mom said, not potatoes, sweet potato pie, and made a pound cake. And, I feel like Loretta Devine. In Waiting to Exhale.
Yes, you got a little bit. Yeah, I just got a little bit of some over here. You welcome to it.
Listen, right.
That's hilarious. Okay, yeah. I ain't about to clown with you today. Come on, right.
Yes. But you know what? At this time of year, even though it's a wonderful time of the year for most of us, it still can be filled with some grief. It still can be filled with resentment or even uncertainty and unsettlement, because this can be a first for many people, a first for loved ones not being around for the holidays, as we reflect on that and so many other things. So I definitely want to gear and focus our attention to that later on. But I got a new segment I want to try out with you. Okay. Daryl, you ready? Let's do some. You ready for this? Drum roll, please. Some dad jokes. Are you ready? So, Danny, what did the little computer say, what did the little computer call the daddy computer?
Outdated.
No, data.
Data. I was close.
Data.
I was close.
You were close. You were close. You were close. I'm gonna give that one to you. Data. So, why did the husband not necessarily come immediately home to his wife? Oh, I'm sorry. I said it wrong. Let me say it. Why did the astronaut?
See, you already messing it up.
Why did the astronaut not come directly home to his wife?
I have no idea. How about
because he needed some space.
Oh, stop. I should have gotten that.
Okay, last one. Dad jokes. These are dad jokes. Come on, y'all know they funny. You know they funny. I need some LOLs. I need some laughs and some hearts or something up in there. What a husband and wife went out to a restaurant to eat some dinner, and the waitress was flirting with the husband. And the wife looks over and says, "You know what? She has to have COVID." He said, "Why?" "Because she must have lost all her sense of taste in talking to you."
Messed up. That is messed up.
Yes. That's messed up. That's messed up. Yes. So listen, dad jokes. You know, they're corny, but they work. And we want to lighten up the humor here and talk, dad jokes. I love some dad jokes. My son gets me all the time because dads were known as being corny. Who cares? Dads are supposed to be corny. Dads are they don't necessarily have to be popular. But, Danny, let's kind of turn the corner a little bit. There have been so many people. I have a client right now who lost his father when he was at age 13, 14, and saw him die in the front yard and had a massive heart attack and stroke. And he did not understand why he was the way he was at 25. And so I said, for 11 years, you've been holding all this in. And he says, "I'm crazy. Everyone says I'm angry, I'm moody, all these things." And I said, "Young man, you've experienced post-traumatic stress because you held your father. This was not the first heart attack or stroke that he had. This was the second one." And said, so when do you get to, really process that? And when I talked to him about processing it, he said he had never processed it really. And he sat there and cried and felt tears and shame that he cried. I'm like, there's no need to be shameful about that. This is, and I think too often and I so grateful that his mother didn't do this, because I had one client say this when he was 10 and the dad walked out, said, "You are now the man of the house." He's a boy. Wow. He has no idea. Yeah. No idea. Messages. Yeah. But Danny, I know you've kind of experienced something very similar to that. If you don't mind sharing your story, and I appreciate you being so vulnerable tonight with us.
Sure. I was going on 5 when I lost my dad to cancer. One of the things about all of this, there was to me, I felt like it was a lot of mysticism, a lot of, I knew something was going on. I had a hunch, even at 4, almost 5, that something was going on with my dad. He was in and out of the hospital, and I never understood what was happening, and nobody ever stopped to tell me about it.
Right.
On. I just knew that he was in and out of the hospital, and one of those final times, I don't think it was the final, but he came back with this stitch in his neck, and the thing scared me to death. And even in that, nobody talked to me about what was happening. And I would see him hawking up a whole bunch of stuff and sleeping a lot. And I recently, interesting how the perspective of a kid, a 4 or 5-year-old, has this perspective as to what was really happening. And so I asked my brother, I said, "Was my dad how long was this whole period? And he
Mm-hmm.
said he was gone in about 6 weeks. I'm sitting there
Wow.
thinking like it was like a period of a year or two. And
Right.
so I finally asked him that question this past year,
Wow.
this like last month.
Wow.
And
Mm-hmm.
so to
Mm-hmm.
start realizing some of the things are not like what
Mm-hmm.
we think we remember. And
Yeah.
we have to go back and fill in those missing pieces.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Danny, that's amazing because you said you were 5 years old, and when you think about that, that is still so. Those are the foundational years of our thought process, and those are the important fundamental years of growth development. At
Exactly.
5, so that's why here in California there's this huge initiative about first 5 read, talk, sing to making sure that we're getting the proper brain development. So during
Yeah.
the developmental time of your brain, you
Mhm.
had this tragedy, this trauma that
Yes.
happened, the
Mhm.
death of your father, and he had gone through cancer. So, how do you explain cancer to a 5-year-old? And how do you even say, hey, this man that you've known for 5 years is now suddenly going to be ripped out of your life, and you're going to have to do life without him? Wow.
You, Marty, I do have to think about the time period.
Mm-hmm.
And we're
Mm-hmm.
talking, I was what? I was 5 then. So we're talking about maybe, what is that? I'm about to be, I ain't gonna say, so maybe
Oh,
44 years ago.
right,
Um,
right.
so back
Danny,
then,
wow.
all we had was, you pay attention, you notice, and
Mm-hmm.
that's how you get taught certain things. And sometimes you're
Yes,
taught wrong.
yes.
And I feel as though I was taught wrong in the sense of not what they told me,
Mm.
but
Mm-hmm.
my processes and my senses told me. And
Yes.
you said something earlier about how do I make sense of him being gone or him having cancer. I would have
Right.
settled to know that he was sick.
Oh,
Somebody just
right.
say, your
Daddy was
dad,
sick.
just a
Yeah.
simple thing. And I'm like,
Yes.
made my own choices as a 5-year old, what that
Right.
truly and actually meant for me and how I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
handle it. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I feel as though that 5-year old visits me quite often
I'm
when it comes to
sure.
grief and loss and how I live my life.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
Right.
part of the residue of all of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And interesting, because I think, right or wrong, our nature as a father,
Mhm.
my nature is want to protect our children from
Exactly.
death, protect them
Exactly.
from hurt, protect them from
Exactly.
shock. And especially because, we are just now getting the freedom, can I say it that way, of talking and sharing about our mental health crises and that
Yes.
we are not okay. And we still struggle with that. I had a person call me today said, I've had your number for 6 months, but I just had the courage to call you today.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
I
And
know
and and what?
totally what you're saying.
Yes, yes. And so I said, and I asked him, I said, what gave you the courage to call today? He goes, because I just got tired. I could
Mhm.
not do it anymore. And
Mhm.
and how often and how many of us are sick and tired of being tired?
Sick and
And
tired.
yes, yes. So,
Mhm.
what advice would you give to maybe dads now, or someone who's lived through that pain, or maybe a parent? What you have this amazing series of books and workbooks, and I love
Yes.
this series. Come on, series.
Come on,
Talk about
series.
my messages.
My messages, and then we got several others, which is we got buried messages. We got the
Okay,
messages
okay,
we carry. I mean, we
yes,
got so many messages that
yes,
but in this particular book, the
uh
one I
huh,
just recently wrote called Buried Messages, it really started for me when I was 5. And I tried to
mm-hmm,
work on this book a year ago, and I just could
mm-hmm,
not. it. I could not put it together. And this past May, I recently
Mm-hmm.
lost my sister, which
Mm-hmm.
led me to go ahead and complete the book
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
I felt like being a therapist plus my new pain, my new hurt,
Mm-hmm.
this
Mm-hmm.
residue that this person who, I shared space with my whole entire life, we shared the womb
Mm-hmm.
together, was
Mm-hmm.
ripped out of me. I wanted to capture those feelings fresh so that I could use them for someone else, and
Right.
they could really be helped through that process as me being a therapist, also
Right.
a person who's dealing with my own grief and my own loss.
Mm-hmm.
So that book kind of marries memoirs of my, just my stories, my personal stories, with also giving you some practical ideas on how to deal with grief and get through those
Mm-hmm.
those primitive stages of grief and loss to where sometimes you're just out of it and you don't know what
Yes.
to do. So yeah,
Yes.
that's where we're
Yes.
at with that book.
Yes, yes. I love this. Someone else was just asking on my personal page, says, talking about their loss of wow. I'm going to read this. Danny, please share how you were finally able to process that loss at 5 years old and the
Oh, that's
healing
great.
process. Yeah. Thank you so much for that question, Trish Simpson. Thank you for that beautiful
Yes.
question. She want to know
I,
how did you reconcile that,
yeah.
especially later, maybe during the preteens, your teen years. That's a heavy
It
message
didn't
and burden to carry.
start, it didn't even happen then. It took me
Mm.
going to graduate school. Um,
Wow.
Becoming a therapist or on my way to becoming a therapist and
Right.
understanding that I was not crazy.
Oh, that's
I
good.
there was validity to this pain, to this not getting,
Yes.
to this silent type of idea as to what death meant. So when my
Wow.
professor started to talk about grief and they began to talk about family systems and how families operate,
Right.
I began to point my finger and put my finger on it and say, "Oh, that's like the stuff I went through." And
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing wrong with me. I think one of the things that we
Wow.
all want to feel as though we belong in the sense that
Mm-hmm.
we're not
Mm-hmm.
crazy, there's nothing wrong
Mm-hmm.
with us,
Mm-hmm.
and we just have a lot of stuff that's unresolved because nobody ever talked to us about it.
Right.
So I really do feel like my resolve came in starting my graduate program into mental health and counseling. Mhm.
Yes, yes. Isn't it amazing? Because that was a breakthrough for me after dealing with my
Oh,
divorce and some other
oh,
things as well. But
yeah.
Danny, you said something, a couple things that was very vital.
Okay.
One, I don't want to skip over or gloss over that for you, the process and processing of that, and you always use this term, radical acceptance, if you will, did
Mhm.
not come until you were into your adulthood.
Exactly. Exactly.
And finally being able to process it as an adult, but then not
Hmm.
only processing it, but processing and saying, wait a minute, my
Hmm.
pain was normal. My
Yes.
reaction to that pain was
Hmm.
normal, because a lot of times we always want to categorize people and say, oh, they're just crazy, or,
Hmm.
they just acting out. That's them, without saying, wait a minute, that
Hmm.
their pain could be a source of why they're acting
Yes.
like this. Their
Yes.
pain or unresolved trauma could be the
Hmm.
reason why their behaviors are like
Hmm.
X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I also sometimes think that the behavior sometimes is such because there is a lot of what's the term I want to use? The term I
Hmm.
want to you have unresolved kind of things that you wish you had done more. You
Right.
wish you had, did this or you had done that. And a lot
Hmm.
of people deal with that aspect in not even recognizing, like, is this really what my loved one would have wanted, or have I created this narrative because it allows me to beat up on myself and tell me
Mm.
I should have done more, I should have done
Hmm.
this, I should have I should have thought more.
Yes.
I should have gotten
That's
15
good.
opinions. And so
Mm-hmm.
often we create these scenarios to self-impose pain that our
That's
deceased
good.
loved one is not asking for. It
That's
is
good.
us who want to live. I've had people say, you know what? I really don't know if I'm ready to get out of this pain.
Mm.
Some
Because
people,
some people have, like you're saying, we know how to live in pain. We don't know how to what it means to be pain free.
exactly. And so we've normalized that. And
Ooh, come on.
I'm telling you, so Marty, I just wrote a blog the other day and it was just so profound to me. It's just like I woke up, it was probably like 11 o'clock, and I said, I just have
Hmm.
to get this out of my spirit.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I was just thinking about how often our early experiences dictate how we deal with
Hmm.
grief, how we deal
Yes,
with loss. And mine
yes.
was one of silence. Mine was one of we
Mm.
just don't talk about it because we don't want to
Hmm.
make anybody sad. And
Right.
in my family, you just don't ask questions. To be honest,
Mm. Okay, okay.
don't ask questions. And so for me, things like that often affect my now Danny Ross because that was the way that I handled conflict. That was the way I handled conversations.
Yes,
I just
yes.
retreat.
Yeah.
I
Thank you
retreat.
for this. Kind of goes into this next question that Trisha, love your questions tonight, darling. She says, since you've experienced loss at such a young age, are you still triggered by loss? Are you still triggered by death? And how do you handle that as an adult? Excellent question.
It's a great question because I had a friend a couple of years ago who asked me, "How did you get interested in grief?" I think because of the mysticism and not
Mm-hmm.
knowing what to do with my own grief, and then
Mm-hmm.
I think about when I look for supports and good
Mm-hmm.
theor- theoretical practices or just things out there to help me. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like you have to do so much digging. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, who better than someone who understands grief at such a young age?
Yes.
And
Yes.
knowing the cultural components and the pieces that go along with my grief, I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
create a safe space and a place to where people could understand that I
Mm-hmm.
get you. I
Mm-hmm.
understand all that type of stuff that you're going through,
Mm-hmm.
all that dialogue that you
Mm-hmm.
have experienced your life, and it's been normalized, but it's so dysfunctional. And I may
Yeah.
be that one person who says this is unhealthy to
That's
mask
good.
your feelings and to not
That's
let
good.
be free in how
Yes.
you feel. So
Yes.
I think I've decided that I wanted to use my pain and anguish and heartbreak to actual help develop other people who are dealing with their own grief, and
Mm-hmm.
saying basically it's okay and understanding that it won't ever leave you. It
Mm.
won't ever
That's so
leave
good. That's so
you. Mhm.
good, Danny. And I love that because a lot of times I think we don't know how to process the
Mhm.
loss of dad. And
Exactly.
can we liken what's the difference sometimes, and can there still be, even though dad might be physically alive, there has been
Mhm.
an emotional death,
Oh
and
yeah.
can there be a difference, or because sometimes our bodies and emotions cannot differentiate between the two, you
Mhm.
know
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
so many years. Sometimes I, because my father's and my relationship at one point was so fractured, it was like likened he had died to
Mhm.
me, because there
Mhm.
was no interaction, there was
Mhm.
no the expectations and what I needed from a father. He did not
Mhm.
have the physical capacity to deliver that to me or even recognize what I needed. So it felt like a death. How do people deal even with that these days when there is an emotional and a detachment? Thank you. That
Uh-huh.
happens.
Yes. I think about if you look on the face of my books, Most of
Mm-hmm.
them have like little blurbs of messages. And
Yes.
in different messages, there are messages that the loved one is shouting into the grave or talking to the grave. I wish I had only known. And what we
Mm-hmm.
have to do is unbury some of those things, which is a
Mm.
hard process. It's a hard process, is to really have the conversation with
Mm-hmm.
yourself first instead
Mm-hmm.
of retreating. You know, we can retreat to ourselves sometimes and not
Yes.
deal with
Yes.
stuff and
Yes,
just
we
say,
can.
I'm good, ain't nothing wrong. And
Right,
you
right,
know,
right.
you lied to yourself. So,
Because
my
that's the mask
first,
that we put on.
that's the mask that we put on. And so,
Because
my
we don't
work,
want people to know. Mm-hmm.
we don't want people to know. So, my first thing is saying, hey, can you be honest with yourself about some of the
Ooh, that's
messages
good.
that you're feeling,
That's
that you're
good.
dealing with? And I had a client this past week, and I say, you know, and they were just giving me like it was a lot of the colloquial terms and the
Mm-hmm.
cliches,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know. But I gotta push through, and I just gotta make. I
Mm-hmm.
say that's great, but you pay me to talk about your loved one, and I
Mm.
say we have to get in here, and I want to talk
Yes.
about the pain. Now
Yes.
I'm gonna let you guide me, but you can't
Mm-hmm.
tell me within 2, 3 months that you're in a good place and you're just ready to move on. If
Right.
you
That's
are,
good.
something is off with that.
That's good.
Something
That's
off with
good.
that. And sometimes you do have to challenge them and say, hey, is that really how you feel? Or is that a learned kind of ideology? Uh,
Mm.
and don't get me wrong, if that's helpful to you for
A
part of your
short.
day, yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
Just to
yeah.
kind
If
of
it's helpful,
make it
yes.
through, maybe through the funeral services and the repast and all that. But what happens after all of that? How do I make it past that? And how do I live past that? Because that
How do
becomes
I?
the real question.
And I think that's a real thing. How do I live with the loss? I think
Mm.
I think we have to reframe the question because we often talk about how do I deal with the death? How
Yes.
do I deal with the loss? How do I deal with the death of
Mm-hmm.
someone who I love who's no longer with me in the flesh?
Yes.
So one
Yes.
of those things we have to do is recognize that we do have to reestablish a new relationship.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
not going to be the relationship that we've known from the past, but it's a new relationship,
Okay.
one that still allows the person you love to be ever present in your life.
Oh, that's
And
good.
I went to a conference, and when I heard that, it set me free because so
Okay.
often I've been told you got to let them go. It's time to let them
Yes.
go. You can't hold
Yes.
on to them forever. And I'm
Right.
just
Right.
like, it's not that I'm trying to pull them up, or
Right.
bring them
Right.
with
Right.
me.
Right. Right.
I just like, do I really have to let them go like that? And so when I
Mm-hmm.
heard that message or the reframing in that new theoretical approach, it really enlightened me and it gave me a nice lift to know that I could still connect and love that person that I lost. And
Mm-hmm.
I can on the memories. I can bring the vibrancy of just their spirit in so many different ways.
We have another question out there. Vindong, what's going on, my brother? Vindon Smith says it this way: the church has taught us to pray and to look forward to seeing them again. What are your thoughts on that? And I think it aligns with reestablishing a new relationship, if I can even put a spin on it. But what are your thoughts on that, Danny, when you're talking about that?
I think that's beautiful, but in the moment that doesn't help me. I'm just
That's
gonna
right. That's right.
I'm
You're
just gonna
right.
be honest. I think it's
Mhm.
I think it's wonderful. I think maybe 6 months, maybe a year, but in
Right.
that moment, the first 3 weeks, the first month, I know my spiritual foundation. I know what you just told me.
Right.
I know you
Right.
mean well, but right now,
It's not helping.
I just want, can you just be present and let me feel what I need to feel right now? Just sit in front of me.
Come on,
Just
come
sit
on.
in front of me and say, "Hey, I'm here for you." You get to feel
Yes,
however you want to feel. You want some water? You want some
right,
food? Hey,
right.
what can I do to be helpful? And so I think that's
That's good.
wonderful. I think
That's
it's
good.
wonderful. Our faith is a great system for us working through the grief
Mm-hmm.
process.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Mm-hmm.
want you, as anything else, if I'm in a car accident, I don't get out of that car accident and say, for instance, I'm not able to walk immediately. Get out of that car because you're gonna be able to walk
Mm-hmm.
um, in the
Mm-hmm.
future. That's not helpful to me at this moment. Right
Or
now,
God won't put more on you than you can bear. You know,
yes,
oh, he
yes.
decided to take the best rose for his bouquet in heaven, and you're like, well, this bouquet
You
on
want to
earth needed it.
you want to get cussed out. I'm just gonna say I'm just gonna say that because
You got a
it's
Peter
so.
spirit.
Ooh, I'm I'm just gonna be real with the people because a
Come
lot
on,
of
come on.
times we say things and until we experience it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it doesn't transfer in the way you think it transfers. It says
Mm-hmm.
insensitivity, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. It says
I love
insensitivity.
this. Yes.
Go ahead.
Paula, thank you so much for joining us. Paula says, I still have not decided what to do with my father's ashes, and it's been 5 years. I ordered an urn, and it recently arrived, but I'm scared that if his remains are on display, I don't know what feelings will arise.
Mhm.
That Paula, that's good. And if I could share just a little bit of Paula's situation,
Mhm.
and Paula, thank you for your sharing that with us today. She had
Yeah.
lost her father 5 years ago to to a tragic event.
Okay.
And so after she just had started reestablishing a relationship with her. So like so many, and I thank God for Paula's being so clear and sharing and being so open with us. Those of us who when father may have been out of their lives and now they're back in and a tragedy suddenly comes and they're taken away out of their lives and processing that and not only was I too young for you to die, but I our relationship was too new for you to die.
Mhm.
Or we just reestablished and we just begin to heal the wounds of the hurts of the past and you
Mhm.
died.
Yeah.
And how do I deal with that? That thank you, Paula, because that brings a
Mhm.
whole nother aspect to that. Danny, how would you address something like that? And what words of encouragement can we give to Paula, who I know
Mhm.
her faith is strong, and so
Yes.
it's not a testament of the strength of her faith, but it's about how do I move forward in my faith. Come on, Holy Ghost. Yes.
You know the thing I think like with Paula and just like what do I need to do with the urn and the
Hmm.
ashes? I think you have to figure out what works for you.
That's it.
A lot of times we're trying to make everyone else happy. I think you need,
Mm.
and I always tell people when you have a decision to make, and it's really not a time sensitive decision, take
Hmm.
some time to just process it and see what you really want to do before you make a move. Hey, ask
Hmm.
some other people what they've done with, ashes and how it made them feel. And then just
Hmm.
actually ask yourself, like, what would it mean for me to keep those? What would it mean for me to put him in his favorite place or spread him in his favorite place? Ask
Hmm.
yourself those questions that you need to ask yourself. We call those dialectical conversations.
Yes, yes, yes,
You
yes.
have these two conversations that really need to be had, and not just having the conversation, but fully having the conversations on both sides and looking at the validity of what they both bring because they both bring you
That's
something.
good.
That's why you spoiling with them.
That's good. That's good. And I know that 2 weeks ago, I was talking to Dr. Marguerite Story. And
Okay.
Trisha, I'm going to get your next question on here. And she has this bracelet that she never takes off that has bits of her mother's ashes on it because her mother says, I promise you, daughter, that every time you preach, I'm going to be there with you. And there's jewelry now. So she says, people will sometimes criticize her, talk about, girl, you need to take off all them bracelets and everything. She says, listen, you don't know what this means. See, that goes into our judgment. And we have to be careful about how we look and judge others without hearing their full story, without knowing the message that they're carrying. Come on and talk to me. And I would yeah, and Paula, maybe it is finding that jewelry, that bracelet, that necklace, those earrings that allow you to put some of your father's ashes in so that he's with you all the time. And there's so many sentimental things. And I think we've lost the traditions. My staff this year put up an ofrenda right after Halloween. You know, that is a tradition in the Hispanic community that they make a altar, if you will, and they bring in pictures, and they actually and Danny, this was the first year I participated in it, and I did not realize how moved I was by sharing the stories and the messages and how it allowed the life of our loved ones to still live on.
You know, Marty, I'm so glad you brought that up because there are a lot of things that I was ignorant to, just like you were just talking about the memorial that the Hispanic culture brings. I didn't know that was the whole purpose. I thought it was dealing in witchcraft and things like that.
Right. Me too.
I'm like celebrating the dead, and I could hear my grandmother's like, that ain't nothing but witchcraft.
And so, that ain't nothing but the devil. Right. You know how we do it. But don't you bring that devil in here.
Don't bring that demon up in here. And where we're at now, though, is when you realize the beauty as to the things, the feelings, and the connections and the stories, and you really understand the why and not create a narrative that's not there.
Thank you.
I think we do that so often.
It was, Danny, the most beautiful thing, and we took a lunch, and people brought in their loved ones' favorite foods, and we got. Listen, you know, we black and brown folk, we love to eat now. Come on. But look at that amazing tradition now we've created, and we get to share in the stories. Well, why is this the favorite dish? Well, I remember Grandma. Listen, I'm going to say it this way. Lucille Sellers would make turnip greens. Now, I like collards, but she did turnips, and she could make some mean, cheesy potato casserole. And so now we're able to talk, and as we're eating these things, we're commemorating. And now I get to pass on the stories to my children. These were your grandmother's favorites. And then she did this with them, and she fed 5 kids on her own on these turnip greens. And so now we get to share the stories, which is a part of the healing process that you talked about earlier.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
Danny, we have another question here, if you don't mind. Trisha, you're right on it. She says, how does one get past the feelings of abandonment in adult relationships when you have lost a parent at 4 or 5 years old? That's a great...
I think just what you just said, though, you recognize it, that you have been abandoned, and there's sometimes a residual from that abandonment. And I always say we all have these vulnerabilities. And when you know your vulnerabilities, you have to be aware of them, because in a vulnerability, you have a tendency to act a certain way because you're triggered from the vulnerability. I think at some point we have to, in that, becoming an adult and
Mm-hmm.
understanding. Just because
Mm-hmm.
I feel this person is going to leave me, or it's gonna end this way, that's not
Mm-hmm.
always the case. We have
Mm-hmm.
Are there alternative beliefs? Are there
Mm-hmm.
alternative types of
Mm-hmm.
narrative that we can
Mm-hmm.
have instead of this dreaded one that has been
Yes.
created from our vulnerability? So I say we have to
Yes.
do the work with the vulnerability of abandonment.
Yes, and can I offer this
Yes,
for your consideration and our listeners' consideration too? A lot of times we have to, as you said, get past the hurts and
mhm.
look at, did our fathers, and since this is a show about what about
Yes,
dad,
yes.
have the psychological fortitude to manage their emotions and manage who they were when society, even in 2019, 2020, 2021, and we're seeing these court cases come up, Ahmaud Arbery and some of these other ones, and we're seeing that they did not value Black lives now. So think about it some 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, and what that meant then. And if society did not recognize that, and we're trying to do the best we could, and we did not have mental health support, and you were told to suck it up, you were told to man
Yes.
up, and maybe they use drugs as their coping skill, maybe they
Mhm.
use sex as their coping skill. Now, that's not, I'm not excusing the behavior. All I'm saying
Exactly.
is, let's stand maybe as best we can in dad's shoes, and then, but here's the good thing, what I had to learn to do, Danny, I had to learn to chew the meat and spit out the bones as it pertained to my father.
Yes. Yes.
What I'm
Yes.
saying, I had to learn to look at his positive traits and what he passed on to me. And then I
Mhm.
can starve the negative traits, because I can have a choice and not to follow this, but I can
Mhm.
also embrace the traits that he gave to me, of his
Mhm.
being charismatic,
Mhm.
and him having a business mindset. Now, he didn't have a very successful business mindset, but he had a business mindset nonetheless.
Marty, you said something about embracing the characteristics. For the longest time, my dad was like known for his singing abilities, being like a part of the
That's
group
where
called
you get it from.
the Golden Voices, and then he was
Uh-huh.
this phenomenal pastor. And a
Hmm.
lot of times, what we tend to do, we tend to resist that part of us
Yes, yes,
because it's equated to the abandonment. It's equated to
yes,
the vulnerability. And
yes.
I had to learn to embrace that, as to, I may not be able to be with him in this particular way, flesh, but he
Hmm.
left me with so many great
Mm.
things. And sometimes they were bigger or larger than me. And it caused me a little
Yes.
bit of frustration because before I could turn into myself, I was Reverend James Rawls' kid who was supposed to
Hmm.
act a certain way, be a certain way. Oh, his kids are good
Right.
kids. They don't get into trouble. And I'm like, yes, we do. Or we want to. Um, and
But
my,
you were
and my,
also,
yes,
I believe you were held to an expectation of a
exactly.
father that you only knew in your primary years.
Hmm.
So how can you hold me to an expectation that they knew him from a congregational and
Hmm.
leadership perspective, but he was more than just a spiritual
Hmm.
leader. He was your daddy.
And on top of that, I think I was mad at him for leaving me with that.
Mm,
Like, how you
right.
gonna
Oh,
leave me with something that I don't even know anything about, but I'm supposed to fit into those clothes, and they're several
yes.
sizes too big for me. And so I
Yes.
struggled with that for years. I talk about that in my book, The Messages We Carry, as to
Hmm.
how we struggle and try to fit into these clothes that are several sizes bigger for
Too
us,
big.
but
Yes.
too big, and it causes a lot of difficulty as we grow up. And instead of just saying,
Yes.
let me just put these in a nice stack until I'm able to process everything that goes along with it, not just that part.
And able to mature with
To
it as long.
mature. That's good. That's good.
As
That's
we
good.
physically grow, the goal is that we grow mentally and emotionally with that as
Yeah.
well. So as I physically grow, my understanding about he died from cancer, my
Mhm.
understanding then later becomes, oh, I thought it was a year, but now I understand it was quick. And
It
what
was
may have seemed like an eternity for me at from a 5-year-old perspective
definitely, definitely,
is
definitely.
different from a 15-year-old perspective, from a
Mhm.
25-year-old, from a 35-year-old, yeah, perspective with that. And giving yourself permission to say, wow, I understand it better now.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I can say, I can look back and tell 5-year-old me, you're going to be all right. You
You,
may
you
not
know,
understand what's going on, but you're going to be all right.
you're going to be all. The other thing I think sometimes I ask in sessions. Sometimes I said, "What do you think your other brothers, your siblings, were thinking about at the time?" And they'll
That's
say,
good.
"You know, I don't even know. I have no." And when I say your homework is to just have a brief conversation
That's
with your
good.
siblings
That's
about
good.
what they remember about the period up until they're dying,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
because everybody has a different perspective of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times, we talk about EMDR therapy, but
Mm-hmm.
somebody said something and it was really good. They said the biggest thing that you get from EMDR is really it's exposure therapy. We
Yes.
expose you to those things that you really never slow down to really look at and process all that really was happening. And I did this with a client, and one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that he was saying, this is what I see. But by the time we kept doing a couple of passes for EMDR, they started seeing other things in the room. And so
Mm.
you can't do EMDR. Sometimes you may want to check with some other people who are in your family who may be able to be helpful in filling in some of the blanks, or to just kind of challenge some of the narratives that you've been telling yourself for years, because
Mm-hmm.
that can also be healing.
Yes. Danny, this has been so absolutely amazing. And I
Mm.
cannot thank you because can you believe our time is up already?
I cannot
We
believe.
right. This always happens with us. We get on this roll and we get lost in the conversation. And I want to
Yes.
thank all of our listeners who chimed in. Jonathan Davis, always good to see you.
Yes.
Trisha, great questions. Jerry Scott, thank you. Sylvester Henry, thank you. Vendone, all of you on there. And I was reading a lot from my personal page because some of the stuff wasn't coming over, but there was too many great questions over there that I want to share. Danny, how can we get a copy of this electronic version of Buried Messages? How do we and how do we get your other books that you have in this whole series? Because it makes a
Yes.
wonderful Christmas gift.
Stocking stuffer, and I think we still have the
Yes.
Black Friday special going,
Oh, okay.
where
Come on.
it's a $70 value. You get all five of my books for only $35. It's
Shut the
all the
front door
electronic. Shut it. You just shut it up right now. You
and
get
close the
all
back
five.
one.
Close it. You get all five of those books for $35. You go to themessages.net and you go to shop. You can
Wow.
get t-shirts. We got a new line coming out called the Brotherhood and the Sisterhood.
Wait a minute. I saw that. Wait a minute. I need
Our
it.
brotherhood and the sisterhood is coming along with us. And so, brotherhood and sisterhood is all about creating healthy dialogue and supports
Yes.
for for men and women of color, and creating those safe places where we can talk. But go ahead and get that before I go ahead and take that Black Friday deal down. The messages dot
Danny, that is an amazing deal. Messages.net, right?
themessages.net.
Themessages.net. And we want to promote supporting small businesses, especially those of us who are in this thing called therapy, that we can help. And I encourage all of you, please, y'all buy up Danny's books. Y'all buy them, give them out as gifts. If you want a gift that's going to keep healing and helping our community, we don't need another PlayStation. We don't need another pair of Jordans. We don't need another a watch. We don't need another pair of red bottoms.
None of that.
Now we would like it, but we don't need it.
Marty, you got to give up some stuff too. So we gonna give
I
up
understand.
that.
Lord have mercy. We're going to give up the smell goods and we're going to give up the clothes, because those things depreciate in value. But a book that can speak wellness into our lives, and only a $35 investment, we spend more than, I went to Carl's Jr. And spent that Hardee's and spent $38 just yesterday. So you are cheaper. You are cheaper than Carl's Jr. and McDonald's, and we all can do that. So listen, I need you all to do that. Danny, I cannot thank you enough for joining me today. And thank you for just being a trooper, y'all. And how can people get a hold of you if they need to get a hold of you? And especially if you're in that Dallas and the Texas area and they're looking for an amazing Black male therapist.
Yes, what you can do is email me at Danny, DANNY, at DLRCounselingGroup.com. That's Danny at DLRCounselingGroup.com. And you will get a message from me because that is my email address.
I absolutely love it. Now, I just didn't spend $38 on me. It was for three of us. But someone said, well, what did you spend $38 on? 3 meals, and we all digested it and everything and can't get it back. But
Marty, I give you permission. If you wanted to eat $38 worth of stuff, you get to eat $38 worth of stuff.
No, I can't. No, I can't. Listen, I appreciate. Thank you for the permission, but y'all have me out here looking like a Oompa Loompa.
Hey,
but that's all right. I'll be a happy Oompa Loompa with that as well. But listen, we want to thank you for joining us for another edition of Mental Health Matters with Marty. And we want to thank our special guest. He's not a guest. He's a regular on here, Danny Ross, for Buried Messages. And we want you to get that, definitely get that and support him and his journey with that, because we need good clinicians who is out here doing the work. You know that he shared his story of processing and going through. So this is something he went through himself. So you know it's good. Now, listen, we want you to remember, we don't want you to be out here alone, but there is help if you need help in your mental health journey. How do I get help? We want to leave you with some resources and how to get help. Danny always shared with you already some of his resources and how to get a hold of him. But also, if you're going to experiencing any type of crisis, you can type crisis to 741-741, and there'll be some licensed people on there to guide you. You can contact Psychology Today. I believe Danny Ross is on there. I'm on there. Other clinicians that look like you and that can support you and tell you what their vision is. You can go to therapyforblackmen.com. I'm on Therapy for Black Men. Good Therapy. There's another resource that you can go to. And as always, marcelconsulting.com as for your therapy resources. But during this also, we want you to shop if you're looking for some amazing Christmas ideas. Danny's already told you that. You can check out my website at mentalhealthmarty.com/shop. And we have some amazing things there for you to support you in your mental health journey. We have our Stop the Stinking Thinking journal that we want to encourage you to get. Please get the journal there. And our Black Mental Health Matters. We have that in this amazing t-shirt as well as the hoodie. It makes an amazing gift, and we're giving 15% off during our extended Black Friday and Cyber Monday sale. And always also listen to our podcast at Mental Health Matters with Marty. In our podcast, if you are an Apple listener, please give us a 5-star rating and leave us a review. And become an iMatter member of Mental Health Matters with Marty by texting iMatter to 855-717-1272. As I always say each week, in this journey called life, we don't want you to secretly suffer in silence in the shadow of shame, but we want you to speak up, speak out, and live. Join us tomorrow night as we continue the Daughters Dialogue with Dr. Marguerita Story and Bishop Dr. Sean Stewart as we talk about finishing well in 2021. Be safe, know that we love you, and enjoy your life. See you tomorrow night.